Hi, it's Julie from Silverwitch Studio, and today we're going to create a fun summer blooms floral wreath. This is a loose, easy look, and I think you'll have a great time making it. So grab your iPad and your Apple Pencil, and let's go. I'm starting out with a 2000 pixel by 2000 pixel canvas. There's no texture or anything to this one, but we do have some free giveaways. So let's look at the brushes. We've got the DuoColor brushy brush. This is a DuoColor brush that you may have seen me use in previous videos as part of my watercolor brushes. This one's a little different. I made it specially for you to give away to try the DuoColor. It's got a brushy texture, so I called it brushy brush. Original, right? But it has a nice sort of streaky texture to it. And then the other two brushes that I'm giving away for this tutorial are a Septastar and a Hexastar. In a previous video, the colorful bouquet, everybody seemed to really like the Pentastar that I gave away that was a guide to shaping the petals of your flower. So I've made two new ones, one that has 6 and one that has 7. So we'll use these today to make the flowers for our wreath, and the brushy brush to do the rest of the work. So let's start out by clicking on the Hexastar. We're going to use this one first. Go to the color palette. The color palette is called Summer Blooms, and it's got DuoColor pairings here. To start out with, it doesn't matter what color we have selected because we're just going to use the stamp brush as a guide. I've got a number of layers set up here. I'm going to start on the bottom one. Stamp once. That size is about 25%, so that's a good starting point for our flower guide. Obviously it's way too dark, so I'm going to go down to the end here, slide the opacity down somewhere in the teens. 15% looks good to me. We're going to switch to the next layer up, go back to the brushes and grab that brushy brush. Now let's go to our first color pairing here. So I'm going to select the yellow, switch, orange, and I want the orange to be the dominant one in the circle up here. So now that I've got my colors set up, I'm good to go. So this brush is a pressure sensitive brush like most of my brushes are. And I did have a question from M. Larson asking how to get that taper. And the real answer is practice, but I do have a tip or trick that you can try. This is something a lot of calligraphers and hand letterers use to warm up or to practice. And it's just creating these thick and thin strokes. So this can really help to practice or to get a feel for the brush and the pressure sensitivity. So you start out with light pressure and then heavy pressure. Light, heavy. So you may find this useful to practice. I often do this just to warm up, to get myself ready to make something if I'm feeling like I'm feeling a bit rusty. So hopefully that's helpful to you. To erase that, I'm just going to clear the layer. I've still got my brush selected. I'm going to go up to about somewhere in the low to mid 20s. Let's do 24%. Zoom in a little bit here so that you can see. Light pressure, heavy pressure, light. And then reverse it on the way back without picking up your brush. This is a key thing that will really help you get a smooth transition in the colors. So light, heavy, light, light, heavy, light. And I'm using the arms of the stamp to kind of gauge the size of my petals. These are loose florals, so they don't have to be precise, but it does help you get them roughly even. Light, heavy, light, and reverse it back. And you can see we're getting that brushy texture and a nice blending of the colors. I think it's really pretty. Light, heavy, light, and backwards again. And for the next petal, one more. Light, heavy, light, and reverse it. Okay, now to create a center for the flower, I'm going to grab this brown pairing over here. And it really doesn't matter which is the one selected in the circle up here, because we're going to use them both and blend them. I'm going to bring the size down to about 15%. And then I'm going to stipple it by just touching it down all around the center of the flower. This creates a nice little textured section for the center, the bit that the bees love the most, and I think that works. All right, let's turn that layer off. Zoom out a little bit here, go up to the next free layer. We're going to use the second color pairing now, so this sort of yellowy orange and then this bright red. Bright red is selected in the circle, and we're going to do the same routine. Light, heavy, light. Oops, did I readjust my size? I did not. So let's go back up to about 25%. Light, heavy, light, and reverse. And you can see we're getting a different color variation here with our new pair. Kind of went with yellows and oranges and reds this time. Just something really bright as we move into summer. Each time doing light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure, and back again. You can see you get this really pretty streaky effect. It works fun. I don't mind if these are a bit messy because that's the style that we're going for this time. And once again, I'm going to switch to those browns. Bring the size of my pencil back down to about 11, or the size of my brush rather. Do the stippling. This is when you'll drive your partner crazy by all the tapping sounds. That looks good to me. We're going to turn that flower off. And now I think it's time to switch to the Septastar. So I'm going to go down here. I'm going to clear this layer. Again, it doesn't matter what color I'm using. I'm going to go to the Septastar. Zoom out here so you can see. Go ahead and stamp that in. Go up to the next layer. Back to the brushy brush. Let's go up to, let's do about 30% this time. We'll go to this third color pairing, sort of a pale yellow, and then kind of a bright orangey red. That's the one that's selected up here. Zoom in a little bit. And again, soft, heavy, and repeat. I'll go ahead and speed this up here since you've seen this a couple times already. Don't want you getting bored, and I'll see you back here in a minute. Okay, back at regular speed now. I thought I'd show you one more thing. I have a lighter color pairing here for the center. of this darker flower. So I've switched to that lighter pear. Again, it doesn't matter what order they're in. And we're going to use it to stipple, bring that size down. And we're good to go. All right, I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to turn this off because I'm done with it. And next up is the leaves and the wreath. All right, so we've turned all the flowers off just so that they're not in the way while we're making our wreath. I'm still on the brushy brush. I'm going to switch to this green pairing down at the end here. And the darker green selected up in the circle. I'm going to start out with it at, let's say about 10%. We're on a fresh layer. And we're going to draw a big circle. Bring it back to the start, let it snap, and then put one finger down on the screen. It'll turn it into a perfect circle. And then you can adjust your pencil in and out to adjust the size. I think somewhere around that looks good. Now I just want to get it into shape. I do have my snapping on to help me position it. And you can see the crosshairs come up when I get it in the exact center. Also make sure you're set on uniform. So now that I've got that where I want it, I'm going to move up to the next layer to make my leaves. And this just gives me more leeway if I want to erase something and so on. I'm not affecting the base of the wreath down below. So still on the brushy brush, I'm going to bring my size up to probably around 20%. I'm going to zoom in here. And this sort of uses the same motion as the petals, light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure. And you can see you get a fairly nice effect with the streakiness of the brush. I'm going to alternate sides, and I'm going to vary the distance between the leaves. And just keep the look of them kind of organic. I think occasionally I'll add a second leaf. Nice thing about Procreate, if you don't like something, you can always use the 2 fingers to undo and go again. Light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure. I think we'll do a smaller one here. Light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure, and reverse. Maybe do a double one here. And I think you get the idea. I'll go ahead and speed up the rest of this so that you don't get completely bored. And I'll see you back here in a minute. All right, back to the beginning on our wreath, and we're all set. So now comes the fun part when we put it all together. I'm going to go ahead and pinch the wreath and the leaves together. Now that those 2 layers are together, I'm going to move them down below the flowers. And I'm going to start positioning my flower. So turning each flower on, and I'll go to position it where I think it'll look nice. So let's move this over here. Now, if you look at this brush is not as transparent as the Watercolor Magic brushes, but it does still have some transparency to it. So To combat that, if you've seen my videos before, you probably know what we're going to do. We're going to duplicate that layer. Going to go up to our magic wand, hue, saturation, and brightness, layer, turn the brightness all the way up, which turns it white. We're going to duplicate that a couple of times, pinch it together. That actually looks good enough. Now I'll move it beneath the flower and pinch the two together. So now that yellow flower can be moved anywhere and you won't see the greenery underneath it. Now we're going to do it with the next one. Duplicate, hue, saturation, and brightness, layer, all the way to the max. Duplicate a couple of times, pinch. I think this one will go one more time. Position it beneath the flower and pinch it together. Now we can move the flower in place. Rotate it well. Happy with that so far. All right, and I'll go ahead and speed up the duplication process on these next two since you've already seen that. So I'll see you back in a minute. Okay, back at regular speed now. Now the fun part of arranging everything can really happen. I think I want this flower to be underneath, so I'm going to move it down. I think I'm actually going to make it a little bit smaller. And let's maybe move the orange one down a little bit. That looks good. I'm happy with that. I also think this one I want to be beneath the yellow one. And I'm going to rotate it a bit. Sometimes I obsess over arranging these things. I arrange and rearrange way too many times. All right, I'm happy with how those look so far. But one thing that you will learn about me if you watch these videos is that I don't like even numbers. I want there to be an odd number. So we could paint another one, but I'm going to show you another method. Let's go ahead and pick one to duplicate. Let's do this orange one down here. Make sure I've got the right layer, and I do. So duplicate that. I'm going to move it so that I'm not confusing the two. I'm going to make it smaller. I'm going to flip it horizontally and vertically. And now I'm going to come up to color balance, layer. Let me zoom in so you can really see this. Now the way color balance works is it works on shadows, midtones, and highlights. Let's start out on the midtones and we can adjust our sliders here. I think if we edge a little bit more towards the pinks and reds. Now let's do it on the highlights. Again, slide a little bit more towards pink and red, and you can really see the color difference that we're getting here. I'm pretty happy with that, so I think I'm going to stick there. So you can see it looks like a totally different flower now. Let me zoom back out, and let's move this guy into position. I think we'll bring him up over here. I think we want him to be beneath that yellow flower, so we'll move him down. I think maybe he needs rotated. So let's rotate and move up just a little. I'm pretty good with that. I'm happy. All right. Now the other thing that we can do is we can rotate our wreath layer. So select the wreath, and you can swivel it around by using this green knob at the top here until you find a setting or an orientation that you really like. I'm kind of liking that. I think that looks good. I've got some greenery poking out here and there and some pretty leaves visible, so I'm happy with that. All right, now one further thing that you can do with the center of your wreath here is you can add some text. Now I did these handwritten ones. Rotate that. Make it a little bit smaller. But if you're not into hand lettering, get that in position. Sometimes it can help to turn your snapping off if you're having trouble positioning something exactly where you want it. I'm happy with that. If you're not into hand lettering, you can always use the add text function that Procreate has and choose a pretty font and do it that way. So I thought summer blooms would be nice. And I also, turn that one off, I did a happy birthday one. Let me rotate that. Put that in position too, because I thought this would be a pretty birthday card too for your mom or your sister or a girlfriend, whatever, whoever in your life loves flowers. So hopefully you enjoyed all of this. I had a fun time making it for you and showing you how it's done, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks so much and have a great day.